So we can talk about how to make your retreat stand out and tips to differentiate and attract more clients. I really like that title. I think it's really necessary. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So could you explain a little bit about what CRO is, and in a way that a 5-year-old could understand?
Yeah, so CRO stands for conversion rate optimization. And a conversion could be any number of different things. You get to decide what a conversion is. A conversion could be somebody purchasing a product. It could be someone signing up for a mailing list. It could be them starting to use your product for free. Essentially, you get to decide what is something that I want somebody to do that represents them engaging with my business in a positive way. Usually that tends to involve either a purchase or a sign up. It doesn't have to involve money changing hands. It could be your email list. So when we say conversion rate optimization, we're looking at tips and practices to improve your signups. And I guess for people outside marketing who might have a cynical perspective on CRO, we hear people say things like, oh, does that involve trickery, for example? And it doesn't have to at all. We have, for example, CRO itself could arguably sit within UX, which is user experience. User experience people tend to be they're not very salesy people. They're people who are quite interested in building products and services that people like. They don't tend to like us CRO people as much. They think we can be a little bit too sales focused. But really, we're kind of the same people. We're trying to build an experience of some kind that is nice and pleasant to navigate. And if somebody is looking to make a purchase, they're looking to buy a product or to use a service, good CRO is about laying out your products and services in a manner that's helpful, that's logical, that enables people to make a better informed buying decision. You could look at it, I suppose, in somewhat of a Star Wars way of the dark side of a force and the light side of a force. Are there things that you could do as CRO that are dishonest and manipulative? Absolutely. In UX, they call these dark patterns. So a dark pattern could be you designing a product in a way where you deliberately make it difficult for somebody to leave, or deliberately lead somebody towards buying a product they don't need. We have a name for that. It's a dark pattern. We don't like doing that. That's an unethical thing to do. Good CRO people are not trying to do that. Good CRO people are just looking to lay out your products and services in a really helpful manner so you can find the right thing. I could give you an example I'm from startup world, and I work with a lot of, say, insurance companies where an insurance company might have 150 different insurance products. And we sometimes talk about what we call the bell curve of consumer choice. So if you go into a shop to buy a pair of jeans, if they've got one pair of jeans on the wall, you will probably feel, that's not my pair of jeans. That's not the pair that fits me and my body. But if I give you 150 pairs of jeans, you've got a new problem, which is, how could I possibly know that that pair of jeans is the best one that fits me? If you walk into a shop that sells jeans, you probably want about 6 pairs, enough for you to be able to take in and compare each different set of jeans and make an informed buying decision. And so for an insurance company, I've worked with companies that design a purchase experience where you put in the criteria, your budget, the things that you want to do, and they say, here are 4 insurance products for you to choose from. So that's a really good example of a company just making it very easy for consumers to navigate the products they're purchasing. Whatever business you run, even if you don't really like to think of it as a business, it's a passion project, be that running a retreat, for example. You're helping people by making your product and services easy to understand and easy to compare alongside each other so that your visitors can make an informed decision and feel more confident about the thing they're buying. So yes, CRO is about getting conversions up, but more deeply and more holistically, it's about helping people to make better decisions. It just so happens to be that we look at numbers to prove we've done our job well.
Yeah. Well, you just said a lot of things there that I want to unpack.
Sure.
Okay. Let's start with, so the first thing, the example you gave, I was thinking most retreats are very generic or very niche.
Yeah.
But whatever they are, for the most part, it's one offering. It's that one pair of jeans on the wall. And you made me think how interesting to put it as an example in the retreat industry, maybe you want to do 4 retreats a year. And maybe each of those retreats is a different pair of jeans, so that you can basically schedule out your year attracting the different groups that align with the different offerings, with the different pair of jeans.
That
Right?
could
Would
be
that
one
make sense?
strategy, potentially,
Okay.
but it could also be that within the retreat itself, you adapt the retreat to suit several different types of people. It doesn't have to be for just one specific type of person. It could be niched, but you could have some flexibility over what people want to get out of a retreat. I think that the optimum number of products depends on how you sell your goods. And it's very easy to walk into a jeans shop and to try on 6 pairs of jeans or 4 pairs. It's a lot harder to go in and try 4 or 6 different retreats. So having a smaller number of products for a retreat might not be such a bad idea. But it's more about having flexibility in terms of allowing your customers to have some degree of control or scope within which they perhaps shape the experience to suit what they're looking to get out of it. But also as well, there's a big difference here as well between a mature and a less mature provider. The more mature you become as a provider, the more confidently you can state, this is the optimum retreat for this group of people. The mistake, I think, a lot of the time when people are launching a new product is not being flexible enough to listen to their audience and let your audience somewhat guide the experience you're looking to provide. When you've done that retreat 20 or 30 times, you're probably in a better place to start specifying the limitations more. But I think when you're launching a service-based product in particular, it's important to have an internal compass for what you want to achieve, but you need to listen to your customers as well and let them shape the product slightly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when we were talking before, you mentioned the artist just wants to go and create their masterpiece, and all the other opinions are kind of like silenced, because it's not about what other people want. It's about what the artist wants to create. Versus when you're trying to build a business, you need to, yes, have that aspect of artistry in the things that you create, but also keep your ears open to listen to what's needed, what's wanted, because that's what people are going to pay for.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I are both people who come from arts backgrounds and have then gone into business. I think that can be a really good path, but there are challenges associated with that. And if you are used to building things that you like for yourself, which is a really great thing to do, that's art. Business is when you're meeting people halfway and you say, well, I'm building something for people like you, but you listen to your market and they say, well, that's great, but actually would like it to be a little bit more like this or a little bit more like that. And, Rick Rubin's book recently and his quotes regarding the importance of art when it comes to music are, I don't refute his comments. I think he's right. And if you're a recording rock star and you have that, or you've got the spare bandwidth in your spare time to create music and art that you love, that's all about you, I think that's amazing. But if you want to create something that is more likely and reliable to pay the bills and to support itself financially and potentially to look after you and the people you hire, well, that's business. Business is a much more reliable way to make money. You could do art and you might make money out of it. Business is doing it in a way where it's much more reliable. And that is if you want to build something that people are going to enjoy, you have to listen to those people. You have to capture feedback from them. And you might decide, what, this particular person isn't the audience that I wish to serve. And that's fine. That's completely legitimate. That being the case, what is the audience that you wish to serve? And when you find those people, it's really important that you listen to them and you're receptive to them. And for a creative person who's used to building things, that can be quite hard. It's a little bit of undoing. It's a slightly different thing to do, to build something in response to feedback.
Yeah. Yes. I want to quickly touch on something you said in the beginning, another thing to unpack, right? The whole user experience versus the conversion, or like the salesy versus the more creative and, human type of, or however you want to describe it. There's a lot of people in the industry I've heard, they don't want to use strategies. They don't want to use tactics. They don't like marketing because they do feel that it's manipulative or using psychology in a way to make people behave in a certain way. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, because personally, I think that you can use those to your advantage when you know that the intention is right and you're wanting to be of service and you're wanting to use those things for the benefit of all. Then, I mean, it's not unethical. It's actually you're providing a benefit, and you're giving people what they don't know that they need.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think what sales and marketing suffer from is there is a logical bias where we are very conscious of sales and marketing people when sales and marketing people do sales and marketing in an unethical and unhelpful manner. We're very conscious of what we're being sold to. We're very conscious of being marketed to. When people do good sales and marketing, that is about helping people to navigate and make complex decisions and feel confident they know what they're signing up for, no one sees that as sales or marketing. They see that as a really helpful person who came into their life and helped them to make a good purchase decision. And the best salespeople and marketing people don't come across as sales and marketing people at all. They come across as just helpful people that help us navigate this decision. But I'd encourage people to think about this less like trying to trick people or trying to encourage people to do something they don't want to do, so much as empathizing with somebody who does not understand your discipline and your art form anywhere near as much as you. And for you, it's obvious that signing up to this retreat, signing up to this course is going to yield these benefits. And it's empathizing with someone who is in a different place, who hasn't experienced the things you've experienced. They don't have the knowledge and the experience to feel confident that this retreat will give them those particular benefits. And it's your job to empathize with that person who has the lower knowledge base in this particular arena and share that knowledge with them in a way that's helpful and structured so they can feel confident. You know, the logical bias that all of us have when we immerse ourselves in a particular world, be it as a marketer, as a painter, as a baker, anything we do is that we assume other people have the knowledge that we do. And all of us do it all of the time. And really good marketing is about being able to step out of that and see that there's somebody who wants to discover something, to grow, and you have to explain to them how your service is going to do that and what that looks like. You can't just assume they're going to get your value proposition off of that.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that you do is with websites and copy. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. I work predominantly with technology startups and then a few companies as well, areas like autonomous vehicles, but it's very much the same game of taking someone who has an idea that they think could help people and communicating that idea to a specific audience and inviting them to participate in the idea and giving them a good reason to do it.
So how important is creating, like back to what you were saying with the user experience, creating this story through copywriting that gets people to connect with you emotionally, because that's how people buy, and then convert from what you write, from the copy that you write?
It's crucial, but I think the thing that people get wrong with storytelling, so storytelling is important, but when I come across copywriters who tell me that they're really good at storytelling, they don't tend to be the best copywriters, in the sense that it's a specific type of storytelling that we have to do that a lot of people don't quite get right. Let's take, say, what I call an About Us page. So in the tech and startup world, the About Us page, which is frequently done badly, somebody just talks about themselves. Now, if I want to do a good About Us page for a technology brand, the technology brand founder might talk about their experiences growing up, but they're really talking about their customers. So I'm telling a story that's ostensibly about me, but it's really about you. So if I just talk about the things that happened to me, that's kind of self-indulgent, but it's talking to people in a way where I've experienced these things, I've been on this journey, but you're relating it back to other people. You're being vulnerable. You're showing people that you've had similar experiences to them, that you've been through things they've been through, that you've had some time and some resources to come up with a strategy, and now you would like to share this strategy with them. So it's this subtle shift in storytelling where you are still talking about yourself, but you're actually framing it very much around of the whole time I'm writing, I'm not thinking about me. I'm writing about me, but I'm actually thinking about you. I'm thinking about you, the audience, you, the customer, and what have I been through? What knowledge and experiences do I have that are going to help you for where you're at right now? And that comes out with a very different tone and feel when you're doing it through a perspective of wanting to empathize and help somebody versus just getting a soapbox and talk about how great you are.
Yeah. I was talking about this with a friend of mine who I interviewed on this channel also, that as I'm going through this process, I'm reading a lot of about me pages. And I notice the ones I connect with the most are where people are sharing a background that I can relate to, that I resonate with. Because the ones that are like, oh, I graduated from so-and-so, I got these certificates, I have all, it's cool, it's impressive, but I don't know who you are. I just know what you've done on paper.
Yeah, the whole point of good marketing isn't to impress people, it's to connect with people. I guess there's one thing that I would say, both to dispel bad marketing, but also to reassure people listening that marketing is a good thing. It's not about impressing people, it's about connecting with people. And there are absolutely people who call themselves marketers who try to impress people. And I totally get why people don't like that. And I think you're right to not like it, but they're bad marketers. Good marketers are about being vulnerable, connecting with people, showing them that you're on their team and you've built them something, designed them something that you think could really make their life, their business better.
So how does all that relate to conversion on a website? Like, can you maybe provide some examples of, I don't know, like a headline on a page that is bad marketing, or, is not going to generate conversions that a lot of people think will. And then another headline that's like, most people wouldn't. Sometimes it's so simple, right? It's like you have to have the knowledge and the experience to know these things, but it's something that's right here. And you would think, oh, how is that going to make a difference? So can you give some examples of those?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's both the macro and the micro level. The macro level being the journey that I might take somebody through across a complete website homepage. The micro level being what we call the hero section. So when we load up any website homepage, the hero is the top section where you have the introductory headline, the explainer underneath, the paragraph that fleshes it out, typically a picture of the product or the service or the person providing it, and the initial CTA, call to action. That top section, whether it's a retreat, whether or not it's a hotel, whether or not it's a technology product, the hero is that top section that exists to convert warm traffic. People who are coming to your website who probably know a bit about you already, have been told about you, they might convert from that hero section alone. We then have the rest of the page is there to take colder traffic, people who aren't quite sure yet, and to get them more excited about your product to see how it's relevant, and then we convert them lower down. So we'll deal with the hero first and then look at the whole page. So within the hero section itself, the first thing I should say is that the biggest mistake that people make when they're creating homepages is to copy homepages from market leaders. So the most important question to ask when it comes to how we're positioning a product is, how many people who land on the website already know what the product's about? Now, if I go to Nike's website, how many people land on Nike's website and do not know that Nike is a running trainer company? They make sneakers. Sorry, American audience, sneakers. How many people land on Nike's website and don't know that Nike made the Jordan trainer that Michael Jordan wears? I'm going to guess like 99% of people land on Nike's website and know that. 99+% of people land on Apple's website and know they're a consumer electronics brand. Now, if you're in the retreat space and you look at your favorite guru, let's say your favorite person in your space who is very well known, and let's say, for example, you estimate maybe 70, 80% or 90% of the people who land on that website know who that person is. They are playing a profoundly different game to creating a website when 1 to 2% of people, or even nobody who lands on that page knows who you are. You might be running paid traffic. And for somebody who's an established player, all you have to do is essentially say, you know who I am, this is the latest offer. So we look at startup products. The iPhone 16 is Hello Apple Intelligence. The iPhone 15 is Titanium. You know what the iPhone is. You know what it does. You know how you can make phone calls. You can take great pictures. By the way, it's got a cool new feature. It's titanium. It's got AI. Buy it again. That's very different to when Apple were launching the iPhone the first time, and they had to tell us, it's a breakthrough internet communications device. It's a widescreen iPod, all of these different things. So the same thing for your hero section. There is a need to over-explain your product and explain exactly who it's for, why it exists. And if the top players in your space don't do this, that's because they don't need to do this, but you do. So to go back to your question, there's various formulas we can use. For example, I like to sit down and think about, who is the audience? What is the product? What are the benefits we get out of using a product? One of the biggest mistakes people make for startup companies, including, retreats, that's a startup. And a startup is defined by a lot of things, but from a marketing perspective, a startup is a business that does not have a high level of brand awareness. That's what we mean when it says startup, company that the world doesn't know about yet. The big mistake is for people say things like sell with benefits, not features, which is absolute garbage. People need to understand what you're selling. And if you tell people, this retreat's going to give you this wonderful feeling, this wonderful emotion, selling people the idea of you're going to find stillness or oneness, that doesn't mean anything, because every other retreat on the planet promises to do the same thing. So the golden rule I use is that if you could copy paste your headline onto a competitor's product, it's not a good headline. But when I say a headline, the page headline, the section headlines, any headline that you write in your page should be something that's unique to you and your particular retreat or service. In terms of formula, I like to think about the person, the product, the features, the benefits. So we can have formulas, for example, the retreat that delivers these particular services, this particular audience. You might decide to lead with a headline that's slightly more evocative and playful and creative. That being the case, at least in the explainer section, which is a paragraph underneath, make sure you get in there the audience, the specific services that you offer, and the services that you offer. People have to be able to look at that hero section and clearly understand in plain English the exact deliverables. Obviously, the date for retreat, what are the exact activities they're going to be doing as well. You can't just tell people they're going to get a certain feeling or emotion. They need to tangibly understand what are the exact workshops, spell those out in plain English as well. You can talk to benefits, you can get benefits in there, but people really need to have it spelled out in plain English, what exactly they'll be doing on a day-to-day basis. It's useful to get social proof. So from a CRO basis, one of the most consistently proven principles is getting a nice customer quote from somebody who seems approachable and, more importantly, relevant. So if I'm running a retreat for people who are busy business people and I give them a quote from somebody who doesn't fit that criteria, that might not resonate. You ideally want to have quotes from people with a photo that looks familiar, that fits the particular persona you're marketing to. When it comes to the macro experience, which is the actual journey, one thing we often do with startups is what we call a pain point section. So you have the hero, which is designed to sell the product initially to people who've just landed on the website. You can have a pain point section where you describe, are you experiencing these particular problems at the moment? I often have a headline and then 3 smaller sub-problems. You're having this macro pain point or problem, and then 3 sub-problems. Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? A pain point section is a really good way to build up empathy with people, to build empathy, to build connection. And if 2 or 3 of those minor pain points sit well, they're likely to trust you and feel like you understand where they're at. Once you've done that, you then give them a solution, a quick blurb where you explain how your retreat solves these particular problems. Then if you're working through, we might call them features and benefits, but you could equally call them services in the case of a retreat. Give people a step-through guide of, here are the 3 or 4 things you're going to experience on the retreat. Day 1, you're going to do this. Day 2, you're going to do this. And day 3, you're going to do this. Or you might have a sequence you walk people through. First, we're going to start with this. Second, we're going to start with this. And third, start with this. So I like to walk people through the things they'll experience in the service or a retreat in a chronological manner, because it's easier for people to visualize what it's like to do the retreat. and then give them more call to action, more social proof, another quote from somebody who's reassuring, give them another call to action. So that's a basic sequence: hero section, pain points, introduce fee, retreat, and then walk them through 3 or 4 steps of what retreat will actually involve before you finally invite them again to sign up.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you
Thanks.
for laying that out.
No worries. Done it a few times, so yeah.
So how do you? I love what you said about if you can take your headline and put it on someone else's website and it fits, then it's not good.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people copy.
Yeah.
And it's not always ill-intended, I mean, you hear a lot, especially in the startup world, steal like an artist. And so really, no idea is ever really yours.
Absolutely.
At least my belief is all in the ether already, and we're just kind of remixing things.
100%.
Right? But how do you differentiate yourself, which is basically what this is about? How do you make something uniquely yours? Maybe what are some questions that you should ask yourself to help you narrow down what my message is or what your message is?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question and set of points. And the first thing I'd do is say that I completely agree. I don't think that there is any such a thing as a new idea. You look at how music evolves, and all music is somebody taking 2 or 3 styles of music that currently exist, borrowing bits and creating something that looks new, but it's not. If people created new things, the music would leap forward, but it doesn't. It evolves naturally, and the same is true of art. There's a big difference between copying and being inspired by. So I might learn the riffs from a particular guitarist, and I'll absolutely blend some of that into my playing. That's different to just playing someone else's riff and saying it's mine. And when I'm writing copy, I absolutely look at the competition's pages and I get excited and I say, cool, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And I borrow bits and pieces, and that's totally fine. That's not the same as copying. In terms of differentiation, the best way to differentiate doesn't come from in here. It comes from talking to your customers. I think it's good to have a hypothesis. It's good to have an idea about what it is you can do to help other people. Whatever that idea is, it will absolutely be upgraded and better by incorporating things that people tell you. So I have, for example, my own business. I'm pitching to startup companies and I'm telling them what I can do for them. The most valuable shifts have been when companies have come back to me and said, what we really value about your service is that you do this really well. And sometimes that's been something I planned to do. Sometimes it's been something I didn't actually realize I was any good at. So I think it's this sweet spot. Like Bruce Lee always talked about being like bamboo. There's one extreme, which is being like a piece of paper that just has no strength and gets blown away by the wind. But the other extreme is being like concrete, where concrete is too rigid and it snaps and it breaks. Bamboo is strong, but it bends for wind. So it's a sweet spot when you have a business, particularly if it's something creative that you care about. You have this North Star, you have a compass, you have a set of values that you believe in, that you don't want to compromise on, and that's good. But precisely how you deliver those on the ground should absolutely be up for debate and up for discussion and shaped by your customers. And the best products, the best services, any great startup, any great product is an idea that was taken to the market and then shaped and adjusted by the people who it was given to.
And you could even maybe, based on what you just said, take those testimonials and see what phrases sound compelling. And like if someone says, oh my God, this helped me break through my depression after a really painful divorce. And you could put the retreat that helps you break through a depression after a divorce, and that's
Absolutely.
your headline. You're taking it right from their mouths.
Definitely, yeah. The only I guess point that I'd make there is it's helpful to look at volume. So if I'm, let's say 50 people go through my retreat, you want to be capturing data. You want to be capturing feedback from people. Whatever you're doing in terms of your retreat, whether it's online or offline, you need to be capturing feedback. People get to tell you what they like and dislike. And if 50 people have gone through and 15, 20 of those are women or men who have found that your retreats helped get them through a divorce, I would absolutely listen to that. If one particular person says that, then that's nice and that's helpful, but I want to see some volume and patterns before I reposition. And yeah, I mean, within that, then if you decide to commit to that particular area of specialism, then I would absolutely borrow that copy and use it for the headline as you described. But it's good to get some volume going before you make those sorts of commitments, for sure.
Okay. That's a good point. Volume is important, because if you only have one person telling you that's what it did, and then the rest of them were like, well, I didn't do that for me, so I guess this is not the retreat for me. You're right.
Yeah, it's one of the issues sometimes is that you've got to be receptive to feedback, but don't be the piece of paper that gets blown around in the wind. No matter how great your product is, some people won't like it, and they especially won't like it if you've clearly defined who and what your product is for. There'll be some people who just aren't a match, and that's fine. It doesn't mean it's a bad product at all. I mean, if I'm selling a people mover to somebody who wants a sports car, they'll think it's a bad car. And if I sell a sports car to a lady who wants to take her 5 children to school, they'll think it's a bad car. Your retreat is never a good retreat. Will never be for everybody. It could simply be that the wrong people have come through your door. So again, volume helps for that. If 80% of people who come to your retreat out of 100 think it's great and 20% don't, those 20% are probably just not your target market. But if 80, 90% of people who come to your retreat just don't like it, your product probably isn't that great.
That's a good insight too. Sometimes the product really isn't that great, and you need to pivot, or you need to, how do you go about, have you ever in your work done, okay, so I'm trying to formulate this question here. People tend to be nice. They want to be nice. And so when you're asking for feedback of like, why didn't you buy this? I mean, personally myself, I'm trying to get better because I know how important it is, but I would first fill something out to complain about what didn't go right, than I would to say about, because in the moment I'm angry about something. But if someone were to ask me, can you give us some feedback on what you didn't like or how we can make it better? Sometimes it's difficult to get that, and you feel left in the dark. It's not working, but you don't know why. And so how would you go about getting that feedback?
2 things. The first thing is to, whenever you're running any kind of a feedback exercise, to position it as, this is your chance to shape our product. We're not just capturing feedback for the sake of doing better marketing or to inflate our egos. You're telling people, this is your chance to shape our product. We need your feedback to make our service better. So you're communicating to them there is a real value to their feedback, and that you are going to use this feedback in a constructive manner to actually make things better. I think that's really important. Another one is simply to do it anonymously. So you could set up and obviously if you've got 5 people at a retreat, that's harder to do. But if you have 30 people at a retreat, you could anonymize it. People will definitely be more willing to say what they think if it's kept anonymous.
Yeah. Okay.
The only thing with that is that you might need some sort of details regarding what kind of job background they have, because you want to know which audience segment am I dealing with, nonetheless. Assuming they're defined by their job or their gender, whatever it is, the criteria for the target audience you're trying to hit.
I want to ask another question, but I don't want to get off track. So I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
All right, we're going to go on to the quick wins to enhance your online presence. So for someone that really has no marketing background, a lot of maybe what we've been talking about has just been like, but they do have a website that they update. What are some quick, easy wins that they can do to optimize their site for conversion?
So I just had we have to shoot that question again. I've just had some sort of message up about the picture being disrupted. Are we good now? Can you see me clearly?
Yeah.
I'm all good at your side, yeah? You might want to, I don't know if you want to ask a question again, or you just want to cut to me giving an answer.
Yeah, I can ask again. So if someone doesn't have a lot of knowledge about marketing, but they do have a website that they update. What are some quick wins that they could apply to optimize for conversion?
Yeah, so one of the things I like to use are what are called kickers. So they're small pieces of text above a headline. I would say that your hero section for your website should have the headline that describes who your retreat is actually for and what are the specific services that you offer. You can use a kicker, which is a text above as well, to specify in plain English the service that you're offering. And then having an explainer underneath that gives them the details. So that's a sequence of kicker, headline, explainer, and making sure that you're capturing social proof from your customers and getting it up there. If there's anybody that you've spoken to previously, any happy customers you dealt with that you haven't captured a quote from, if you can reach out to them and grab those quotes from them. It could be friends of yours who use your services or previous happy customers. Really, you should be capturing customer feedback on an ongoing basis. But if you're starting today, you can absolutely go back in time and reach out to people who've previously used your services and say, hey, do you mind if I get a quote for my website? Or do you mind if I capture some feedback about the experience that you had for me to improve my service? By the way, I might use it on my website as well. I think that having a spreadsheet, whether you use Google Sheets or Excel, doesn't matter, and keeping all of your customer quotes organized in there against the person, the background they have, whether it's a job title or gender. I like to have like what particular aspect of my service it related to. And I can start to see areas and gaps. Well, I've got this service, but I've got no customer quotes there, and trying to capture and fill those gaps. And I try quite hard to fill those gaps and make sure that I've got, for each of my clients, they might have 4 different sectors, but one of them we don't have any customer quotes. Let's really proactively fill that out. Customer quotes are just an absolute goldmine for marketing angles, and whatever marketing you do will be made much easier by having those quotes and having them up to date and organized in a bank.
Yeah, definitely. I always fall for those. I wouldn't say fall for those, but I look for those because I want to know, like, okay, this sounds really good. Has anybody used it? And what are they saying about it?
And it's someone who looks like they're into the same things you're into. They're relatable. They've got a similar problem to you, similar background. That's certainly from CRO testing. It's very important to have relatable people. If it's a quote from somebody who looks like they've got a completely different set of values and problems, that's not very impactful.
That's something I hadn't thought about before, but that makes a lot of sense. Usually we just gather what we can from who we can, because when we're trying to build it, especially, whoever gave us a positive quote, we want to showcase it. But like you said, if that person looks completely on the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to be like, oh, well, yeah, we probably don't have the same goals. Or
yeah, but that's for them, not for me. There is so much when we look at, say, evolutionary biology. The capacity of human beings to read each other's behavior is phenomenal. We get vibes from people, we get feelings from people. We are incredible at using body language and facial expressions to judge, is this a friend? Is this an enemy? Is this somebody I'm interested in romantically? Is this somebody who could be a good friend or a good business partner? If you look at the amount of patterns the human brain has become adept at developing and using to place people into boxes. So when we're looking at putting together any kind of a marketing activity, it's for example, when we're talking down a podcast, when I'm talking to my clients, the importance of cultivating a well-lit studio environment so they can see my face, we can build an actual connection. If you're working in a remote team and you've got people all over the world, it's very important to cultivate that office environment and lighting so you can form that connection. You can read each other's body language and make sure you don't misunderstand each other. And in the same way, when you're creating that website, it's important to have human faces on it, not so much to sell the product, so much as to back up these quotes from people that are reassuring us we're about to make a good purchase decision, are coming from people who seem relatable, people who we understand. There's some really ancient psychology going in there and parts of the brain that are being triggered when we have people we relate to reassuring us that we're about to do something helpful and positive. And obviously to that end, video testimonials are incredible as well. That's slightly outside my ballpark. I've had a lot of people talking to me recently about video testimonials and asking me to rate those. And that's probably my area of weakness at the moment. I'm very confident video testimonials deliver really good results, but I haven't actively been involved in testing them yet. And that's something, the market's clearly shifting towards video a lot more. I need to get more involved in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Video testimonials are definitely, because you can, I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of people fake those quotes on their site.
Yep.
And it's wrong, but a lot of things that are wrong happen in the world. So sometimes it just feels like, you really need to, having a video is just another level of proof, because you can hear the person, see the person moving. But who knows, with AI, maybe you can start making fake video testimonials too.
I was about to say that's the next frontier. What I'd say this for in terms of marketing, I will say this for my own business and for companies I've seen companies get out of the gates faster because they've used dishonest marketing. I see those companies typically fall flat on their face at some point. For my own business, when I was launching my own business 7 years ago, I decided for my own benefit, for my own selfish benefit, not because I'm a nice person, but just because of the way I like to do things. I want to do things that are real. I want to get those customer wins. I want to get real testimonials purely for my own creative satisfaction. And I saw some marketers get out of the gates ahead of me, and I quietly overtook them maybe a couple of years later. But I've seen that same pattern in startups as well. And you probably can get some quick wins by BSing people. And you might, more realistically for people watching, you might get frustrated that you see people getting out the gates ahead of you because they are BSing. Mm-hmm. Generally, if you're patient and you just try and do things in the right way and try to do things honestly, you're not guaranteed to succeed, but you are more likely to end up with a sustainable business that's real than someone who does the wrong things to get ahead. They tend to get caught out. Not instantly, but over time, they tend to get caught out.
And I mean, my husband and I, Israel and I, we always talk about this world. You see lots of people trying to be the first.
Yep.
And we are Apple fans, huge Apple fans. And so we often look back at that and think, okay, well, Apple doesn't try to be the first. It tries to be the best. So other people are, coming out. They're the first. They're the innovators in certain things. And then, like with this whole AI thing, everyone initially was like, where is Apple? Like, what's going on? What are they doing? But like in the back of your mind, those who know the quality and are loyal to the brand, you develop this reputation of like, okay, it's okay. Because whatever is happening behind the scenes, even though it's taking a lot longer, is going to be much higher quality or much more thought out. So it's hard, like you said, to see people racing ahead because your adrenaline and your fear starts feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to get left behind. But if you just, put your head down, focus on building something that's high quality, intentional, sometimes it pays off and you just like speed through later on, 2 years later, like you said.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's this real sweet spot that's hard to articulate where there's one extreme, which is to be completely obtuse to the market and just power on doing your thing, even when nobody's giving you any feedback, but it's a good thing. You don't want to do that. That's a really bad place to be at, to be telling people who you think your customers they're wrong. That's super bad. The other extreme is to be like a leaf from a wind. It's just every new whim, the same people who, 2 years ago were really big in on crypto. And then straight away, again, those people right now straight into AI startups. And whatever the current thing is, that particular type of person's just jumped on it and they're always following the trends. That's not where you want to be either. There's this real sweet spot in terms of listening to the market, listening to feedback, but also being stoic and having patience and saying, well, that's cool, but I'm focused on this thing right now. I have got customer feedback. People do like what I'm doing, but it's not blowing the doors off a house right now, but I'm committed to it. And it's the same, if you're into fitness or anything you want to get good at in life, you learn patience and you learn reps. You can't beat reps. Whatever it is you're doing, if you've done this thing 2,000, 5,000 times, you've got a massive advantage that someone who's done it 200 times doesn't have. And just building up volume in whatever you're doing, whether it's running your retreat, whether it's fitness, you cannot beat the volume game as well. And when you build up volume, when you build up reps in what you're doing, you get to a place where suddenly things seem quite easy. It takes a long time to get there, like a really long time. And suddenly things just start to seem to be going your way. And for me, it's sort of 5, 6 years in where it suddenly started to be just a lot of wins happening quite easily. And it's because you've just been doing the thing for so long and committed to it. But it's important that throughout that process, you have got that feedback. I have dealt with people before who have spent 3 years building something and they've got 0 customer feedback and they've gone in completely the wrong direction. That's not a good place. So yeah, it is this sweet spot. And I think Apple's an amazing example of that, of a company who's never first to market. They watch other people launch things. They learn from other people's mistakes. For example, the Apple Watch was the weakest sleep tracker up until about 18 months ago. Apple brings out an update and it becomes the best sleep tracker on the market. They just waited, collected the data, and then launched an incredible product. I've learned for myself over the years, I'm not very good at doing things quickly. When I do things that are very quick and reactive, they tend to fail. I'm quite good. I like to study and read lots and plan things out. And that's my particular rhythm. That's my kind of the way things work for me. Your model for success might be different to somebody else's. Some people are much better at thinking quickly and launching quickly. I'm not. Your own version of success might have a very different flavor to somebody else's. That's totally fine.
Yeah, that's much more my pace too. I like to, even just listen, usually you're like, I take my time and my body was like, like I took a breath. I was listening to this podcast from it was a YouTube interview with a Harvard professor talking about AI. And he said, we're coming to this point where either we have to adapt to it or it has to adapt to us. And we are organic biological beings that work on natural cycles, which means we have day and night, we have seasons, we rest, and the AI doesn't turn off ever. It's always on. And so it is not adapting to us. What's happening is that we are adapting to it. And that is why we are burnt out and just speeding through everything and feeling like we need to. So I find it refreshing when more people, especially people who are in startup and tech, and just say, you know what, I'm going to take it slow because I do believe that there's power in there, especially for us because we are not robots. So our strength does not lie necessarily in doing things quickly, but our strength lies in doing things slowly and with intention and patience, because that's what makes us human.
And it's also who you're comparing yourself to. I think what Elon Musk has done with Tesla and SpaceX is incredible. It's amazing. I don't want to be Elon Musk. I don't want that guy's life. I respect what he's done immensely. I don't want that life. I like to wake up each morning naturally. The sun, after the sun comes up, like 8 a.m. I like to go running. I like to do sports. I start work at about midday and I work through to like 8, 9 o'clock at night with breaks. But I like to start working midday. I like to spend a lot of time in the gym. I like to spend time with my girlfriend. If I have a problem in my relationship, I want to solve it then and there. I never want to kick that ball down the road because I'm busy with work. For me, my work fits around what I do. And there's a whole bunch of people out there, like Steve Jobs. He's built amazing products that I love. I don't want to be that guy. And a lot of these super high achievers, you can respect for work that somebody's done. You can enjoy the products they have and the art that they've done or the sports they've participated in. That doesn't mean you have to emulate them. And I actually look at a lot of those people's lives and it's like, I don't want that life. I would quite happily make 1/10 or 100th of what they make, which is still a really nice, healthy amount of money, and have a business that fits with me and my lifestyle and my goals. And part of growing up, I'm 38, in my 20s, I would look at people at the very top, want to be them. Now I'm much more interested in people who aren't famous, but I know who have quietly built a really, really nice life, that have plenty enough money, that have lots of free time, that do lots of things they enjoy, all of the role models that I have now, the people who I want to be more like, aren't actually famous. They're people who are just quietly doing amazing things without anybody knowing about it. Most famous people have really, really unpleasant lives in comparison.
Yeah. I think most people in the retreat community, I mean, that's the whole reason they do retreats, because they want to slow down. They want to focus on all the things that you mentioned, waking up with the sun and being more mindful and spending time with people you love and in community. And so I think that's much more this vibe. And it's good to know, like, the overall message that you can totally be that trailblazer if you want to. But you can also be that quiet person that's making amazing things and still making a difference in the world, and just, taking it slow.
That's very much the what we've seen in tech. We have the Silicon Valley in California scene was at one point counterculture. In the 1980s and 90s, you had corporate America, people wearing suits, carrying briefcases, and working in Silicon Valley and wearing flip-flops to work was counterculture. Those guys work crazy hours, 60, 80-hour work weeks. The new counterculture thing is, Silicon Valley is now the conservative establishment. And, you raise money, you have to move and set up an office in California, you have to hire people, you have to have an office. The counterculture thing now is, I live in Mexico, I live in Bali, I live in Thailand, and I have a technology business that's making more money than I need to be happy, and I get to do the things I enjoy each day. So we've got our own thing in the tech scene, which is prioritizing quality of life. And we now look at the people who are doing these crazy, insane hours in Silicon Valley and say, that's cool. You guys do you. I don't need to own a unicorn. I don't need to be a billionaire. I want to build a sustainable, healthy business that supports me and my family and a few other people who work for me. And that's definitely a clear parallel I would see between the retreat community and certainly the indie hacker startup scene that I know and I'm part of. Is we're all prioritizing a sustainable, healthy way to make a good living, while also, having a good relationship and health too as well.
Yeah. And maybe you could start hosting retreats. You can start doing conversion and copywriting retreats.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely it's interesting. So what I do see is a lot of the people I know who have cashed out, they've built a technology company that's done really well. And inevitably, even trying to balance out their work-life balance, they'll get to a period where they work very hard and it probably is a bit more unsustainable. How many of those people, once they sell their company, close their laptop and go and start a coffee shop or go and start a retreat? And it's like this, it's definitely a path in tech, is after you sell that company, then going into retreats. And I think when you spend like a decade of your life looking at monitors all day, doing something that involves not looking at a computer screen and being out in nature is really appealing. And I'm okay for now. I've not burned out just yet, but I could see that could be a thing in the future, 100%.
Yeah, it could. I see it. I would go. Sounds like a fun time to learn and just enjoy at the same time.
That sounds, yeah. I mean, I've not actually put pen to paper on that one, but that's definitely got some potential. So yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so last question. We never get through these. They're all so good. And now I have to pick just one. Okay, let's do this one. If you had just 1 hour per week to devote to conversions, you're optimizing your conversions, what should you focus on first?
1 hour a week, I would divide that time in two, and I would spend half an hour booking. I got half an hour, like 6 5-minute calls. Maybe I'd take 40 minutes perhaps, and spend 40 minutes with 10-minute calls with 4 different customers, 4 different people using my service. Or here's something I didn't bring up, it's important as well. If you are pre-product, you haven't launched yet, talking to people who are my target audience, which is the other thing you can do as well. Talking to people who might be the people who use your product, and capturing feedback from them over either A, what did you like about our product and service, our retreat, what did you not like? Or B, if you are looking for a new retreat, what would you think to this proposition? And putting your product in front of them to get feedback. And I would spend that remaining 20 minutes looking at my website copy and looking for headlines throughout the page for each of the different sections, thinking how can I shape and improve the section for the overall page, the headline for the overall page, the headline for pain point section, and the headline for each of the different services, and thinking how can I shape these in response to my customer feedback to feel more empathetic, more relevant, and more impactful. But I wanted to get that point over that I should have got over earlier, which is the thing that you can do if you haven't yet launched your product is to reach out to people who might use it and get their feedback too. Or you could be really sneaky and you can actually go out, and if you can find large banks of reviews for people using your competition's service, that's a great way to get intelligence. So I will look for what is the main review platform for your industry. They might be Google reviews, they might be Trustpilot reviews. Making sure that they are not reviews published by the company themselves, which will obviously be filtered. Going through and taking all of those and looking for patterns for what are the frustrations people feel with this particular service or product. How can I address those and improve upon them? And you can look for weaknesses in the market and identify things that could be done better. So that's a nice bit of competitor intelligence that you could build in as well. But yeah, essentially, if I don't have much time for my marketing, I would spend half to 2/3 of it talking to my customers, the other third to half of it implementing that feedback into my online presence. And not just my website, but also my social media posts as well. When you've got a nice messaging strategy in your website, you can then put that into your Instagram posts, into your video content as well, capturing that message and putting it over.
That's great advice and really surprising. I wasn't expecting you to say spend like 2/3 of it speaking to customers. My techie brain just went right to, yeah, you're going to go into your Google Analytics and start looking at the data and then adjusting the copy. But I love that because that's very human-centered. And I mean, you're ultimately communicating with them. So why not talk to them and then use that information on your site?
Yeah, so 2 things I'd say there. Firstly, data from Google Analytics is only really valuable once you've got to around a minimum of 2,000 participants for any given experiment, which if you've got that, that's amazing. Companies who've got cheaper, higher volume products might get to that quite quickly. If it's a high value product with a smaller number of customers, which I think any retreat would fall into, it's hard to get to that. But the other thing as well is the very best marketers I know, the really, really elite marketers, are more empathetic than they are analytical. I know some pretty good marketers who are good at data. The very best marketers are more empathetic. And you can empathize with data. Data can be given to you and you can try and form a picture for what that paints about your customers. But even with AI now, like I might go out and scrape 3,000 reviews from a competitor, and that kind of volume I'll feed through AI and ask it to rank keywords. But nothing beats sitting down and actually reading through reviews of our own product and getting a feel for what customers are trying to say. Data is helpful, but it never gives us a complete picture, ever.
I like that too. I'm glad you said that.
Cool.
Sounds great. Okay, well, is there anything else that you would like to share about conversions, copywriting, retreats?
All I would say is just probably the message very early on, which is just that you get to decide how to do marketing for your business. You get to decide which particular activities are aligned with your moral compass, which ones feel good and which ones feel bad. I would say marketing is very much like the dark and the light side of a force. Yes, there are absolutely things that you can do to enhance your conversions in the short term that might feel unethical and shady. You don't have to do them. You can get that advice. You can ignore it. But it is very important. You should be looking to create products and services and interactive experiences that reflect your customers' needs. But you get the freedom to decide what that looks like and which kind of activities are aligned with your business and which feel shady. So take in information, take in advice from lots of different people, but just filter it through your own moral compass and decide which of these activities and practices feel good and help wholesome and which make you feel uneasy, and that's fine. You trust your intuition on that one. I certainly have, And the only couple of occasions where I listened to people with my head rather than my heart, I later regretted it. So definitely take in a lot of information and trust your gut over which practices to use.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all of this.
No,
It's
it was
been
a pleasure.
amazing.
It was really interesting. And I think, as we said, the parallels between, a retreat to startup, right? A retreat to startup. So they're kind of the same thing.
Yep.